Hi everyone, my name is Junon. I have a health science background and I'm the author of the books Truth and Empathy, How to Find Your Soulmate, as well as Theta-Waves Meditation. And I'll put links to my books below. This video is about why soulmates are best friends. It is a touchy subject because we hear a lot of people who say that opposites attract, or you need to work on your relationship, and if we make enough compromises we can make it work long term. But based on my own observations, I would argue otherwise. And it is for a number of reasons. First is that a person who's very different from you means that their brain type is different from yours. So if you look at the 16 MBTI personality types, is that your best match is the same personality type or the introverted or extroverted version of that type. For example, if a person is an ESTP, it means that their best match is another ESTP or an ISTP. So the issue with most relationships when they fail is that it is caused by irreconcilable differences. Essentially, the person does not view the world through the same lens, and it's exhausting to have to explain every aspect of life to another person, because people think that, let's say, if you don't manage your finances the same way, well, if, let's say, we explain to the person and work on it, then we can align our vision. But the people sense that it's the whole world that they don't see through the same lens. So in other words, they will not be attracted to the same hobbies, or they will not have the same type of interaction when in terms of their romantic relationship or family relationships. The way, even in terms of the aesthetics, like for example, people who are sensor perceivers like tattoos and piercings, whereas someone who is a sensor judger, they will not be, actually find these ways of presenting themselves appealing. In other words, it has to do with more than what appears on the surface. And this difference in terms of how we perceive the world is not really impacted by a person's ethnicity, religion, culture. We put off emphasis on that, but really, if the brain types are different, the other elements or factors are really just exacerbating the problem. So a person is more likely to be in a successful long-term romantic relationship if a person's brain type is the same or similar, versus if, let's say, they both are, let's say, Christians, or if, let's say, they both are from the same country, or they're the same culture. And that's why people get confused. Yes, you want like attract like, but it's something deeper. The other aspect has to do with the fact that most of us spend most of our time not being true to ourselves, or we're not being authentic. If, let's say, we look at, let's say, a normal work week, like if, let's say, you just think about how many times you are doing something that you don't really are interested in. For example, do you want to commute to work? Do you want to do administrative work? Even when you get home, let's say if you share accommodation with the people, do you go to bed at the time that you want? Are you watching the show that you enjoy, or you have to compromise? Go, well, I'll watch your hockey, then you let me you watch my soap opera. So in other words, you don't realize how many times you compromise when it comes to you being really authentic. And what you'll see that as we get older, it is packaged as being an adult. Really, being an adult means that 90% of the time you will not do what you truly are inspired by, or what is really aligned with your true nature. That's why it's so important to choose a mate who is your best friend. The reason is that a person's your best friend means that, again, they have the same or similar brain type, they view the world the same way, so you'll have the same hobbies, you'll find, even in terms of your sense of humor, you'll find the same things funny. And what happens that if, let's say, you don't marry your best friend, you will have to outsource that. So you will have probably a best friend, either male or female, that can compensate for the fact that you don't feel really close to your mate. We want deep down to be able to show who we really are. Most people spend so many of hours of the day or throughout the week wearing a mask. You want people to relax with that person, and you also want someone who in terms of even IQ can understand certain aspects of life. So if let's say someone's very much into math and science, if you marry someone who's very different from you, it means that this aspect of yourself cannot be really fulfilled. So in other words, when you marry someone who is your best friend, it means that the brain types are the same, you have the same values, ethics. People think that, well, if you were brought up by a particular type of parents, then you're going to be different. No, what really determines your ethics and morals has to do with your brain type, and that is something that is already talked about. So in other words, if you marry someone who is your best friend, you probably have similar IQs, similar likes, dislikes, the way you organize your life as well. And one aspect is very important when we're talking about finances. Financial stress can really put a lot of strain on a relationship. If you're not aligned, that will be something very difficult, and you'll see that different personality types tend to handle this aspect of their lives differently. The other aspect is sexuality. Are you turned on or off by the same sort of like visuals or even in aesthetics? All this makes a big difference. And the other aspect to do with trust, if you don't feel that this person is your equal, it means that maybe you have to compensate for their lack of competence. You may feel that you have to hide certain aspects of yourself. So in other words, when it comes to being with your best friend, you are with an equal in terms of power as well. So there's not that feeling of like having to dilute your truth to accommodate the other, because if let's say you want to relationship where you're the ones who has more power, well, you're going to be walking on eggshells not to hurt the person's feelings. The other way around is that the person may feel that they don't have a say, they don't have a voice in the relationship because you have so much power over them. So in other words, people feel most themselves with equals, and whenever there's a power difference, there is going to be an issue long term. So the other important point is that when people first mate is that they usually are very physically attracted to their mates, but over time, they're busy, they might be stressed. The other aspect is that, well, we don't look as physically attractive as we used to, in our 20s versus, let's say, if we're in our 70s. So what is left over time is that friendship. So if let's say your relationship is not based on this solid ground, it means that when that is gone, then that's why many relationships fail long term, because they're not each other's best friend. So that even though they're put under a lot of stress and the sexual aspect is not as strong, then the whole relationship just unravels. So for all these reasons, based on my observations, the most fulfilling long-term romantic relationships are between best friends. And this aspect is essential to consider another person your soulmate. So let me know what you think about the content of this video by commenting below. If you like this video, if you learned something, please click on the like button. Also remember to click on the notification bell to be notified of other videos I'm going to be making. Subscribe to my channel, and we will talk soon.